Hello, everyone. Very exciting. And we begin. I call the meeting to order. We are resuming meeting number 57 of the Standing Committee on Procedure and House Affairs, and we are picking up where we left off last Tuesday. The committee is continuing debate on the amendment of Ryan Turnbull. Comment should go through the chair, as you know. I'll give you the list in 1 second. And the clerk and I will maintain a consolidated speaking list. From last time, we have, based on who is present, Mr. Fergus, Mrs. Romanado, and Mr. Barrett is our speaking list. You'd like to be added? Are you want to be added, or you want to be yes? Okay, perfect. Okay. Oh, shoot. Good job. Excellent. Mr. Fergus, la parole est le vôtre.
Madam, the floor is yours. Madam Chairperson, I'd like to take my name off the list. Thanks for the time being.
Mrs. Romanado?
Merci beaucoup, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I'd also like to withdraw my name for the time being. Thank you.
And for my sanity, you're not asking to be added to the list. You'll let me know if you want to be re-added. Excellent. Mr. Barrett.
Madam Chair, it's been nearly 24 hours of filibuster on the amendment and the main motion. I've seen on our way into committee that there's a message that was sent to the media by the Prime Minister's office that Ms. Telford is volunteering to come before the committee. So hopefully that puts other members' minds at ease. It's important that we're able to get to the heart of this matter, find out what Ms. Telford knew, when she knew it, and what the government did in response to that knowledge. And Canadians are looking for transparency, and they're looking for us to bring that to them, and that's our role. So would hope that we're able to get to a vote on this matter right away.
Mr. Barrett. Mr. Julian.
Well, thank you very much, Madam Chair. And I'm pleased to be subbing into Procedure and House Affairs. As Mr. Barrett just mentioned, the Katie Telford has agreed to testify before the Procedure and House Affairs Committee. I think that's significant. So I would like to call the question on the motion that is before this committee.
That's exciting because my list is coming to an end and I'm not seeing signals. So I'm just going to let the names who are on the list also come to it. And I have Mr. Cooper followed by Madame Gaudreau. Mr. Cooper?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to move a sub-amendment, and we will distribute it amongst members. It's translated.
So why don't we do that?
Okay.
And I'll bring you back the floor. We'll have the sub-amendment emailed around to everyone, and we'll go from there. So just a quick suspension. You can just pause. You don't have to turn it off and on. And we'll be right back to everyone. received what they were supposed to receive. Mr. Cooper.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We have, first of all, an amendment to my motion to call Katie Telford to testify before this committee. That is an amendment brought by Mr. Turnbull, which would be to remove Katie Telford from the motion entirely. And so that amendment needs to be dealt with first, and I believe there's agreement amongst the parties to have a vote on that motion.
So I just want to, so I think there is an understanding that we would like to have a vote on Mr. Turnbull's amendment. The amendment that Mr. Turnbull proposed was actually not changing A, it was changing B. So it was actually not removing Ms. Telford. So just to correct the record as to what the amendment we're on, it was changing the same section that Ms. Blaney had changed. So.
Where's
Okay,
Well-
I stand corrected. It was replacing everything. So now we will get the vote if there's agreement on Mr. Turnbull's amendment. Are you asking for a point of order, Mr. Baker?
Read what we're voting on?
We'll give you a copy, Mr. Baker.
Okay, thank you.
And to Ms. Suds as well. We'll bring you copies.
Vous allez en avoir les interprètes.
The interpreters are going to receive a copy.
So I'll just say while that is happening, today is March 21st, Rural Down Syndrome Day. And I was pleased to be able to share socks with all of our colleagues from the Waterloo-Wellington Down Syndrome Society, and I wanted to give a shout out to Caleb. So those socks, because I won't be in Waterloo to acknowledge March 21st as the day, I wanted to bring Caleb's greetings to all of you. So I hope you do learn a little bit more, but I know that many of you also already know about it. And exciting is that I'm from Waterloo, and the vice chair is from Wellington. So it's the society that represents our region. So with that, I believe everyone has the amendment now, and we will call the question on Mr. Turnbull's amendment.
Mr. Fergus. Ms. Suds.
In favor?
Ms. Romanado.
4.
Ms. Sahota.
4.
Mr. Baker.
In favor?
Monsieur Berthold.
No.
Mr. Barrett.
No.
Mr. Cooper.
No.
Mr. Nader.
No.
Madame Gaudreau.
Non.
Mr. Julian.
No, opposé.
Yeas pour 5, nays contre 6.
Okay. I sometimes try to wait for the microphone to be turned on, and that's what was happening. I will come back to you, Mr. Cooper, as I said I would. Sophie, I want to thank you for calling that vote. The last time you called a vote, it was unanimous, and I was hoping for the same outcome, but not this time. Mr. Cooper, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Given the filibustering that had taken place over nearly a 24-hour period over 4 days, my motion proposed that Ms. Telford appear last week, and so therefore, given that that time has passed, I am now moving an amendment to my motion that reads as follows. That the motion be amended by replacing the words during the week of March 13th, 2023 with between Monday, April 3, 2023 and Friday, April 14, 2023. 2023. 2023. 2023. 2023. 2023. 2023. 2023. 2023. 2023. 2023. 2023. 2023. 2023. 2023. 2023. 2023. 2023. 2023. 2023. 2023. 2023. 2023. 2023. 2023. 2023. 2023. 2023. 2023. 2023. 2023. 2023. 2023. 2023. 2023. 2023. 2023. 2023. 2023. 2023. 2023. 2023. 2023. 2023. 2023. 2023. 2023. 2023. 2023. 2023. 2023. 2023. 2023. 2023. 2023. 2023. 2023. 2023. 2023. 2023. 2023. 2023. 2023. 2023. 2023. 2023. 2023. 2023. 2023. 2023. 2023. 2023. 2023. 2023. 2023. 2023. 2023. 2023. 2023. 2023. 2023. 2023. 2023. 2023. 2023. 2023. 2023. 2023. 2023. 2023. 2023. 2023. 2023. 2023. 2023. 20
Any
I'll be very brief, Madam Chair. This time frame recognizes that next week is budget week and provides a 2-week window during the constituency weeks that this committee could convene and hear from Ms. Telford.
Thank you, Mr. Cooper. Any other comments on this? Mrs. Romanado?
Madam Chair, just because we've had Ms. Blaney's motion that passed as amended, I just want to make sure it's very clear. We have some substitutes on committee today. I'd like to make sure that we all have the right motion that Mr. Cooper is referring to. So is it possible to make sure that we all have what he's proposing circulated? Thank you.
The amendment has been distributed. Sophia has confirmed. So why don't we just take a second to check up in our inboxes to see if it's been received. Sophia, if we can perhaps have a printed copy, that'd be great. Okay, so I understand everyone has received it. Mr. Cooper, I'm just going to ask you to reread it into the record, if that's okay. Make sure we're all on the same page. It's a request.
Read the amendment? My amendment?
Yes,
okay.
please.
That the motion as amended by Ms. Blaney be amended by replacing the words during the week of March 13, 2023 with between Monday, April 3rd, 2023 and Friday, April 14th, 2023.
That's what I was asking. So we have the amendment in front of us. Anyone want to discuss this? Mr. Fergus?
Madam Chair, I will have another amendment to offer in a moment around the minimum of 2 hours, but I think we should dispense with this first.
Would you like to just friendly amend this one? Because then this would change the date to a period, and then the 3 hours, if that's what you're changing, we could just do it at the same time. Would there be a desire to have a friendly?
Just there's been a lot of confusion. We've had a lot of different motions, amendments, sub-amendments over a period of time. I would suggest that we dispense with my amendment to the motion as amended, and then if Mr. Julian wishes to move an amendment, then we can deliberate on that.
Because
Mr. Fergus? Mr. Fergus?
I just want to make sure I understand, Madam Chair, that because of the, I think, useful discussions which we've had around the table, parce qu'on a eu des discussions très...
We've had useful discussions around the table, fruitful ones too, so I just want to check through you or through the clerk, Madam Chairperson, that what Mr. Julian is going to move is in order. Yes. So if Mr. Julian wants to amend what Mr. Cooper has amended, now would be the time to do so. And since Mr. Julian is also going to amend something else, well, we can deal with that afterwards.
All right, so on that, not seeing any hands, I'm going to call the question on Mr. Cooper's amendment.
Okay. Mr. Fergus.
Vote en faveur.
Ms. Suds.
In favor?
Ms. Romanado.
Je vote en faveur.
Ms. Sahota.
Oui.
Mr. Baker.
Favor.
Monsieur Berthold.
Oui.
Mr. Barrett.
Yay.
Mr. Cooper.
Support?
Mr. Nader.
In favor?
Madame Gaudreau.
Oui.
Mr. Julian.
It's unanimous, Madam Chair.
Yeas pour 11, nays contre 0.
The streak returns. I don't know what happened last. You should have let the clerk, the head clerk, to actually call the other one. Excellent. I see your hand up, Mr. Julian.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think this will probably be the last amendment. Hopefully we'll be able to vote on the main motion. I'd like to change after to appear to add for a minimum of 2 hours. So it would read, invite Katie Telford, Chief of Staff to the Prime Minister, to appear for a minimum of 2 hours by herself. And then that goes on to the amendment from Mr. Cooper. En français, ça sera pendant...
In French, for a minimum of 2 hours, to appear for a minimum of 2 hours. Inaudible?
Can we just let Mr. Julian finish what he's saying? We all listen, and then we get to jump in and have the debate on it. Would you like to repeat what you would?
I finished, Madam Chair.
Okay, so you are changing it to a minimum of 2 hours and for her to appear by herself.
Well, no, it says I would change to appear alone for 3 hours by herself to appear for a minimum of 2 hours by herself.
Okay. So I'm going to take names, and it's going to be Mr. Berthold. Est-ce que vous avez levé? No. Suivi par Madame.
Mr. Cooper, followed.
To potentially accept this as a friendly amendment.
Okay.
So I just want to confirm.
This is not a friendly because we voted on yours. So this is a new amendment.
Well,
So,
yes, right. But it's my motion.
voted on your amendment, Cooper. I'm going to have Mrs. Sahota on the list, followed by Mrs. Romanado. Mrs. Sahota.
Okay. I'm just going to make my comments first, and then perhaps Mr. Julian would see it as a friendly amendment or sub-amendment to his amendment, that the word by herself be removed. It is customary for there to be officials present when a witness, like the Chief of Staff, appears. So I would just ask Mr. Julian whether he would accept that as a friendly. If not, then I could, explain a little further as to why, and perhaps be formally then moving a sub-amendment. Mr. Julian?
I'm going to actually, would you like to answer, Mr. Julian?
Well, we'd be removing the word alone, the superfluous.
But there's two words like on either side of the
We'd be keeping
the
the
request. It says to appear alone. You remove that, and then for a minimum of 3 hours, but then it's followed by 2 hours. Sorry,
2 hours.
And then that's followed by herself. Like it's I don't know why it was ever worded that way, but I guess somebody really wanted to make that emphasis that she be alone and be by herself at the same time. And so I think that neither, both should be removed.
So, Mr. Julian, would you like to accept that as a friendly amendment, or you don't see it as a friendly amendment?
We've removed the word alone. I think that's sufficient for what Ms. Sahota is speaking of.
So, Ms. Sahota is suggesting that by having her by herself, she does not have the ability to have her officials with her, and is suggesting that it would be more customary for someone to appear with officials. You're suggesting you want her by herself and not with officials.
We have taken out alone, and for a minimum of 2 hours. I don't see that as instructing her not to be with officials. Well, I mean, officials are behind. She's consulting with them. That is normal practice at committee.
So
I think there's a difference between officials being sat behind versus being at the table with you to be able to consult. I think that's the nuance. Mrs. Sahota?
So perhaps if removing by herself is not seen as a friendly amendment, perhaps I can suggest adding more words to it. Say she may be accompanied by, may or may not be accompanied by officials. I mean, I think it'd be easier just to remove the by herself. If you're not opposed to officials coming, then she would be here. I think the point at the end of the day, everyone, I think the whole point is to have Katie Telford appear. And that is what we've been talking about for a long time. We're making progress on making that happen. And so now it seems a little bit silly that we're struggling with, with this wording.
So I'm just going to go back before I go to Mrs. Romanado. Mr. Julian, it's your amendment. Do you see that as a friendly one or not? That's okay either way.
I see with this amendment, that officials could accompany her and she could consult with them. That is something that happens at committee.
Okay, so then I'll move a sub-amendment.
Mrs.
Okay.
Sahota? In all honesty, if I can just use the conversation that the clerk and I just had, it's a public meeting. So if the deputy's in the room and somebody asks a question and they say, she says, I can, my deputy's in the room, if you would like the deputy to elaborate, it's a public meeting. So technically, you could bring them to answer that question in a sense. Like, if the person really wants the answer, the deputy we'd have to just agree to it. And if I think the person doesn't want the answer from the deputy, then that, I think, speaks to the person who doesn't want the answer from the deputy. Am I perhaps being too logical? I don't know. Mrs. Hoda looks concerned, so yes?
No, I think it's good that we're having this conversation. It clarifies things. I like the perspective that you're giving and the reassurance that Mr. Julian seems to be providing, that his intention is not to exclude officials from the meeting. So as long as they're not excluded from being present, and am I correct in assuming that, Mr. Julian, that that's not your intention?
I think the way the chair just spelled it out is it's exactly what the committee would understand as well.
Okay, thank you.
Mrs. Romanado?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And actually, I was going to just ask for the same clarity from Mr. Julian in terms of if Ms. Telford would like to have officials with her, but we've already had that conversation, so that's fine. Thank you.
Thank you for clarifying that, Mr. Fergus.
Just for the point of clarity, and then I will withdraw this, or I will move on. But just to understand what Mr. Julian's understanding, and perhaps all members' understanding as well, is that if Ms. Telford is here with officials, and it's a public meeting, they can be here. I get that. Would they, for my purposes, would they have a name tag and sitting at the table so I could at least know who they are and the role that they play?
So what I would suggest is that, let's say the witness was to say, I would like my official to be able to elaborate, and the member was suitable with it, yes, somebody would come and bring them a name tag. Because they'd be at the table to answer the question. They can't answer it from the back. So the minute you are seated at this table, yes, there's a name in front of you. I wasn't sure if you wanted to say something back, so that ends.
Good luck to the clerks on having name tags just ready and prepared to bring up to the table, and good luck to the analysts for providing us perhaps with a little bit of background, so that they can, as they normally do, provide us with some background beforehand as well.
So I'm understanding that there is agreement that if officials are providing insights, I'm sure we can ask Ms. Telford to let us know who will be accompanying her in the room, and then that way, if there's a line of questioning, we are ready for the name tags and what they do. Does that provide some satisfaction? I tend to usually have some leniency to make sure that members are equipped for a successful meeting. I will use that leniency unless someone tells me I don't have it. We're good there?
That would satisfy me, Madam Chair.
Well, that's always a goal. So thank you, Mr. Fergus. Mr. Nader? Thank you, Mr. Nader. I am going to call the question on Mr. Julian's amendment. And for the record, the amendment is the word alone, which is after appear, to be removed. Keep 4, insert a minimum of 2, remove 3, and the rest reads until the next. A minimum of 2, remove 3 hours. Yes.
Okay. Mr. Fergus.
I vote in favor.
Ms. Suds.
In favor?
Ms. Romanado.
En faveur.
Ms. Sahota.
Oui.
Mr. Baker.
In favor.
Monsieur Berthold.
Oui.
Mr. Barrett.
Yay.
Mr. Cooper.
Favor.
Mr. Nader. Madame Gaudreau.
Oui.
Mr. Julian.
Unanimous again, Madam Chair. It's yes.
Yeas pour 11, nays contre 0.
Thank you, Sophia. Unless there is conversation and discussion, I think we can go to the main motion as amended, as amended, as amended. We're okay with that? Perfect. And I'm not sure who's asking. To you.
On the main motion, as amended, Mr. Fergus,
Je vote en faveur.
Ms. Suds,
In favor?
Ms. Romanado,
En faveur.
Ms. Sahota,
Yes.
Mr. Baker,
In favor.
Mr. Berthold,
Favor?
Mr. Barrett,
Yay.
Mr. Cooper,
Yes.
Mr. Nader,
In favor.
Madame Gaudreau,
Oui.
Mr. Julian.
Adopted unanimously, yes.
Yeas 11, nays contre 0.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Clerk. The motion as amended multiple times passes. With that, I'm kind of hoping we can get an hour of our lives back, but does anybody else have something else to talk about? So I'm going to just give you a quick update on redistribution. We did, as was requested, send out a chart to show you just the breakdown of everything. And then we will have some conversations amongst colleagues in the subcommittee to figure out the way forward for redistribution, because maybe we can get to that next week as it is budget week. And then following that, as the motion that's just passed, we would be setting up a time for Ms. Telford to come. The clerk will reach out to find out her availability, and then we'll try to start working on some of that information so that we are prepped for that meeting accordingly. Excellent. Noddings of heads. Excellent. With that, I'm going to adjourn the meeting. Have a great day.